The storm that night was not the kind that only soaked the ground. It soaked the soul. Rain hammered my roof so hard it sounded like the house was being judged. I sat at my dining table in our small place outside Columbus, Ohio, staring at unpaid bills like they were strangers who kept showing up uninvited. The air smelled like wet wood and cold coffee. Every time thunder rolled, it felt like the world was reminding me how loud silence could be. Upstairs, my daughter Emma slept with her arms wrapped around a stuffed bunny her mom gave her before she passed away 2 years ago. Some nights I swear I could still hear my wife's laugh in the hallway, like it got caught in the walls and never found the way out. But when I looked up, there was only the same quiet house, the same empty chair, the same ache that never fully left. I was a single dad with a job at an auto shop, working long shifts, trying to keep our lights on and our lives steady. I told myself I was doing fine. The truth was, I was barely holding it together. That was why I posted the ad. I kept it simple because I was ashamed of how badly I needed the money. Room for rent. Quiet neighborhood. Private entrance. Looking for a responsible tenant. I did not write, "Please help me save my home." I did not write, "My heart is still bruised, and I do not know how to let a stranger step into my life." I just hit post and hoped whoever answered would be decent, quiet, and distant. 2 days later, the doorbell rang. When I opened the door, I forgot how to breathe for a second. She stood there tall and calm, with long auburn hair that caught the gray morning light like copper. Dark sunglasses covered her eyes. A white cane tapped lightly against my porch boards, precise and steady. She held a small overnight bag in one hand, like she had practiced standing strong in front of new doors. "Hi," she said, her voice soft but sure. "I'm Evelyn. I'm here about the room." I blinked, caught off guard. I had pictured a college kid or a quiet older man. I had not pictured her. I also had not expected she was blind. My first instinct was panic, like I would say the wrong thing and hurt her. I stepped aside and kept my voice gentle. "Come in. Watch the step right there," I said, pointing even though she could not see. Her cane found the step before her foot did. She moved with a smooth confidence that made it look easy. She paused in my entryway like she was listening to the shape of the room. Then she turned her head slightly, not toward my voice but toward the hallway, like she already knew where it was. I told myself it was nothing. People who cannot see learn a lot with sound. They learn with smell. They learn with touch. I had read that once. I gave her the tour, describing the small kitchen, the living room, and then the spare bedroom at the back. The room was simple, clean, and a little sad. A single window looked out onto the garden Emma and my wife used to tend together. In the spring, it used to be full of color. Now it was mostly soil and weeds, like it was waiting for someone to believe in it again. Evelyn walked slowly into the room. Her fingers brushed the windowsill, and her mouth softened into a small smile. "It's perfect," she whispered. Something in the way she said it hit me in the chest. She did not sound like someone praising paint or furniture. She sounded like someone who had been searching for safe ground for a long time and finally found it. We talked through the basics. Rent, rules, quiet hours, the private entrance. I mentioned Emma, that she was 6, that this was our home. Evelyn nodded like she understood the weight behind every word. "I'm not here to cause trouble," she said. "I just need somewhere calm." I believed her, or maybe I needed to. By the end of that week, she had moved in. At first, she kept mostly to herself. She would sit in the living room while Emma played on the rug, humming soft melodies under her breath. The kind of humming that felt like a lullaby, even when it was barely there. When I cooked dinner, I would sometimes notice her turning her head slightly, like she was following the way sunlight fell through the curtains. Then she would smile when the warmth touched her face. I always reminded myself she could not see that. Emma, of course, was the first one to connect with her. My daughter has always been curious, the kind of kid who asks questions adults are too polite to say out loud. One afternoon, I heard Emma's small voice floating in from the living room. "Miss Evelyn, what's it like when you can't see?" There was a pause, then Evelyn answered with a calm grace that made me stop in the doorway and listen. "It's like listening to life instead of watching it," she said. You start to notice what most people forget. Emma accepted that, it was the coolest thing she had ever heard. From then on, Evelyn became part of our daily rhythm in quiet ways. She helped Emma with homework by reading aloud from books. She never once ran her fingers over Braille like I expected. She just knew the words. When I asked how she managed so well, she smiled and said, "You learn to adapt." But little things started to bother me. One evening, I dropped a glass of milk in the kitchen. It shattered hard, and the white spill spread across the floor. Before the sound even fully settled, Evelyn turned her head and reached for a towel. Not toward the noise, toward the exact spot where the milk was pooling. Another time, she warned Emma not to run into the garden because the hose was leaking and the ground was slick. I had not mentioned the hose. The leak was on the far side of the yard. I told myself I was tired. I told myself grief messes with your mind. I told myself I was imagining things because part of me wanted to believe in something strange, rather than accept how lonely I had been. Then one night, after I tucked Emma into bed, I walked into the living room and froze. Evelyn was sitting by the window with her sunglasses off. Moonlight washed over her face, and for the first time I saw her eyes clearly. Hazel. Deep. Focused. She was staring straight out at the night like she could see every shadow moving in the yard. Her posture was still, like she had been holding her breath. She sensed me and turned fast, like she got caught doing something she was not supposed to do. She slipped the sunglasses back on with shaking hands. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. My throat went dry. "Sorry for what?" Quote. Her voice dropped until it was almost a whisper. "For pretending," she said, "for seeing things I shouldn't." I stood there in the doorway like my feet forgot how to move. The room was dim except for the pale moonlight on the floor, and Evelyn's face looked different now that I had seen her without the glasses. Not prettier, not less pretty, just more real. Like I had been living next to a locked door and suddenly heard the key turn. "For pretending," she repeated, and her voice shook like she hated the words coming out. "For seeing things I shouldn't." My mind raced through every moment of the past week, the way she never bumped into anything. The way she reached for the spill without hesitation. The way she smiled at sunlight like she knew exactly how it looked. I felt heat rise in my chest, not the kind that feels good, but the kind that warns you something is wrong. "So you can see," I said. Evelyn's shoulders sagged, like she'd been carrying that sentence for years. "Yes." I should have been angry right away. I should have demanded she leave, called her a liar, protected my home. But I just stood there, staring at her, because something in her expression was not bold or smug. It was fear, the kind that makes people small inside their own bodies. "Why?" I asked, and my voice came out rougher than I meant. "Why would you do that in my house with my kid here?" Evelyn swallowed. "Because I was scared," she said. "Because I did not know where else to go." I took a step into the room, then another. The floorboards creaked under my weight, and she flinched at the sound like she expected me to yell. That hit me harder than any lie. People who lie for fun do not flinch like that. "Start from the beginning," I said. "Tell me the truth." She nodded slowly, her fingers twisting together in her lap. "2 years ago, I lost my sight," she began. "There was an accident. It was not really an accident, not the way people think. My ex-husband Mark was drunk and angry. We were fighting in the car. He grabbed the wheel, and we hit the barrier. I woke up in the hospital and everything was black." Quote. My stomach tightened. I did not know Mark, but I could already hear him in her voice. Loud, cruel, always close, even when he was gone. "I stayed with him after that," she said, and shame flashed across her face. "Not because I loved him. Because I was trapped. I could not drive. I could not work the way I used to, and he made sure I believed I could not survive without him." She paused and breathed in like she needed courage for the next part. "Then I ran," she said. "I waited until he was on a business trip, and I left with nothing but my ID and a little cash. I went to a clinic overseas because there was a treatment my doctor here said was not available yet. It took months, it hurt, it cost everything I had, but it worked." Her voice broke on that last word like it felt too unreal to say out loud. "I can see again," she whispered. Not perfectly, but enough. Enough to be alive. I stared at her, trying to fit that into my mind. Evelyn had carried blindness, recovery, and fear all by herself. And then she had walked onto my porch acting like she still lived in the dark. Then why pretend? I asked, quieter now. Why keep the cane, the glasses, all of it? Quote. She looked down like she could not hold my gaze. Because he is still looking for me, she said. Mark has people. He has money. When he thinks I am blind, he thinks I am weak. He thinks he owns that version of me. If he knew I could see again, he would come to prove he still controls me. He would come to take me back. A cold feeling crawled up my spine. And you thought hiding here would keep you safe, I said. I hoped, she answered. Then I saw your ad. The way you wrote it, it sounded like you were not looking for a tenant. It sounded like you were trying to keep your life from falling apart. I did not like how true that was. You sounded safe, she said, and her eyes finally lifted toward me. Even behind the sunglasses, I felt the weight of her look. I did not come here just for a room. I came here because I needed somewhere to breathe without being watched. The irony of that hit me like a punch. She had been watching us the whole time. You watched my daughter, I said, and my voice tightened. You watched me. Yes, she admitted, and her face crumpled with guilt. And I hate myself for it, but you do not understand what it is like to be hunted by someone who once promised to love you. I did understand some of it. Not the hunting, not the fear of a violent man, but the way love can turn into a wound that never fully closes. I thought of my wife's last days. The hospital. The helplessness. The way I begged the world to stop taking things from me. Still, I had Emma to protect. That was my first job. Always. You should have told me, I said, the moment you moved in. I know, she whispered. I wanted to, but every day felt like one more day I stayed hidden. One more day he did not find me. I stayed quiet, listening to the rain soften outside. The house felt smaller than it had before, like the walls leaned in closer to hear us. Upstairs, Emma turned in her sleep, a soft thump of movement that reminded me what was at stake. I walked to the window and looked out at the yard. The garden was a dark patch of earth under the storm clouds. The hose lay curled near the shed, leaking a thin line of water that glimmered under the porch light. Evelyn had warned Emma about it earlier. She had seen it. She had been protecting her. That detail cracked something open inside me. I turned back to Evelyn. Did you ever plan to hurt us? I asked. She shook her head fast. Never, she said. I swear. Emma is the only light I have felt in years. I would rather disappear than bring harm to her. Her voice was so raw that my anger started to melt into something else, something heavier. Not trust yet. Not forgiveness, just understanding. I sat in the armchair across from her, keeping space between us like a line we were not ready to cross. If Mark finds you here, I said, he finds us too. Evelyn nodded. I know, she said. And that is why I was about to leave. The thought of her packing up and vanishing made my chest tighten in a way I did not expect. It should have felt like relief. Instead, it felt like the house would go quiet again in the worst way, like the kind of quiet that swallows you. I rubbed a hand over my face. I need time, I said. You cannot just drop this on me and expect me to be fine. I do not expect that, she said. I just could not keep lying. We sat there while the rain kept falling, each of us carrying our own losses like invisible bags at our feet. I realized something then, something that scared me more than her lie. Evelyn was not a stranger anymore. She was already stitched into our days, into Emma's laughter, into the way the house felt less hollow when she hummed in the living room. Finally, I stood up. You can stay tonight, I said. But tomorrow we talk about what happens next, about safety, about rules, about Emma. Evelyn's shoulders shook and she pressed a hand to her mouth like she was trying not to cry. Thank you, she whispered. I did not answer right away. I just looked at her, the woman who came to my door wearing darkness like armor, and I felt something I had not felt in a long time. Not love, not yet, but the strange pull of two broken people standing close enough to keep each other from falling. I did not sleep much that night. The storm eased, but My mind did not. I kept seeing Evelyn at the window with her sunglasses off, her eyes steady in the moonlight. I kept hearing her say Mark's name like it was a bruise she could not stop touching. And I kept thinking about Emma upstairs, small and innocent, trusting the world because she had no choice. In the morning, the house smelled like wet earth and pancakes. I woke up early out of habit, the same routine that keeps me from falling apart. I mixed batter in a bowl and listened for footsteps. Emma came down first, hair messy, bunny tucked under her arm. "Daddy," she said, rubbing her eyes. "Is Miss Evelyn still here?" "Yeah," I said, trying to sound normal. "She's still here." Emma smiled like that settled something in her heart. She climbed onto her chair and watched me pour the batter onto the pan. My wife used to do this part, flipping pancakes like it was easy. For a second, I felt that old ache, the one that sneaks in when things feel almost good. Evelyn came into the kitchen a few minutes later. She wore a simple sweater, her hair pulled back, sunglasses on, cane in her hand. But the way she moved was different now that I knew. I noticed how she looked at the counter, how her eyes found the coffee mug, how she checked Emma's face like she was reading her mood. Evelyn paused when she saw me watching. "I know," she said quietly. "Now everything looks like a lie." I exhaled slowly. "Just sit," I said. "Eat with us." Emma started talking about school, about a class pet and a spelling test. Evelyn listened like every word mattered. She laughed at the right moments. She asked Emma questions that made her feel important. Watching them together, I felt a tightness in my chest that was hard to name. It was comfort mixed with fear, because comfort can make you careless. After breakfast, I told Emma to take her homework upstairs and play for a while. She pouted but listened. When her footsteps faded, I turned to Evelyn. "We need to talk," I said. Evelyn nodded. "I'm ready." We sat at the dining table, where my bills still lay like threats. Morning light came through the window and made dust float in the air like tiny ghosts. "First," I said, "you have to tell me everything you haven't told me. No more half-truth. No more hiding in my house without me knowing what I'm dealing with." Evelyn's jaw tightened. "Okay," she said, "Mark is not just an angry ex. He is the kind of man who smiles in public and breaks you in private. He made sure nobody believed me when I tried to leave. He has friends in places he shouldn't. He tracked my phone once. He tracked my bank account. When I disappeared, I knew he'd keep looking." "Does he know you can see?" I asked. "No," she said. I kept the blindness story alive because it kept him calm. If he thinks I'm still weak, he thinks I'll crawl back. If he thinks I'm healed, he will come to punish me for it. I clenched my hands under the table. "Do you have a restraining order?" I asked. Evelyn shook her head. "I tried. He made it messy. He said I was unstable, that I made up stories. I got tired of fighting a system that did not hear me." I sat back, anger simmering in my chest, not at her this time, at the fact that someone like Mark could still have power over her life. "We need a plan," I said. "I'm not throwing you out, but I'm not letting danger walk into my daughter's life either." Evelyn's eyes softened behind her sunglasses. "You don't owe me anything," she said. "I know," I answered, "but Emma cares about you, and I care too, whether I want to admit it or not." The words slipped out before I could stop them, and the second they landed, the room felt warmer and more dangerous at the same time. Evelyn went still, like she was afraid to move and break something. I stood up to escape that moment. "I have to go to work," I said, "but I'm going to make calls, see what options we have." Evelyn rose too. "Daniel," she said, and my name sounded different in her voice, softer than it should have. I turned, and for a second we just looked at each other. I saw fear in her posture, but I also saw something else. Hope, maybe, or the quiet hunger to be safe beside someone again. "I'm sorry," she said, "not just for lying, for walking into your life like this." I nodded. "Just don't make me regret letting you stay," I said, even though the truth was I was already worried I would regret something else. The way my heart reacted when she spoke. The way my house felt less empty with her in it. At the auto shop, I tried to focus on work, oil changes, brake pads, customer complaints. But my mind kept drifting back to Evelyn. I kept thinking about her sitting by my window at night, watching moonlight like she was learning to trust beauty again. I kept thinking about the way she listened to Emma, like her voice mattered. Around lunchtime, my phone buzzed with a number I didn't recognize. I answered anyway. "Daniel Carter," a man said, voice sharp and confident. "This is Mark Grayson." My stomach dropped so fast I thought I might throw up. I didn't tell Evelyn my last name. I didn't put it in the ad. But Mark had it. "How did you get this number?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. Mark laughed, low and mean. "Don't worry about that. I'm looking for my wife, Evelyn. I know she's staying with you." "She's not your wife," I said, and my hands tightened around the phone. "You're a single dad, right?" he said, like he was tasting the words. "Little girl, Emma, cute kid. Would be a shame if someone got scared." My blood went cold. "You don't threaten my kid," I said. "I'm not threatening," he replied smoothly. "I'm reminding you that you don't know who you invited into your home. She's a problem. Give her back, and your life stays simple." I stared at the shop floor, at the car on the lift, at the normal world that suddenly felt fake. My heart pounded so hard my ears rang. "She's not going anywhere," I said. Mark's voice turned darker. "Then I'll come get her," he said. "And when I do, I won't be polite." The call ended before I could respond. I stood there shaking, the phone still pressed to my ear, listening to nothing. Then my mind snapped into one clear thought. Get home. Now. I left the shop without explaining much, my boss yelling after me. I drove too fast down wet roads, every red light feeling like an enemy. When I turned onto my street, I saw it, a sleek black car parked near my driveway. My chest tightened, my hands gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles went white. The car door was open, like someone had stepped out in a hurry. I slammed on the brakes and jumped out, running up the path. My porch boards creaked under my feet. The front door was half closed, not locked, as if someone left it that way on purpose. "Evelyn," I called, pushing the door open. The house was too quiet. Then I heard Emma, a small, frightened sound from the living room. I ran in, and my heart nearly stopped. Mark was there, standing in the middle of my living room like he owned it. Evelyn was between him and Emma, her hands shaking but her body steady like a shield. Her sunglasses were off, and her hazel eyes were wide with terror. Mark's gaze slid toward me, and he smiled, like a man who enjoys breaking things. "So," he said slowly, "this is the hero." For a second, everything inside me went still. It was like my body understood danger before my brain caught up. Mark stood in my living room with that calm, cruel smile, like he was visiting a neighbor and not invading my home. Emma was behind Evelyn, clutching her bunny so tight the fabric wrinkled. Evelyn's hands trembled, but she did not move away. She stood between them like she had been doing it her whole life. Mark looked at Evelyn's bare eyes and tilted his head. "You took off the costume," he said, voice dripping with mockery. "So you can see now. That's new." Evelyn's throat bobbed as she swallowed. "Get out," she said. Mark laughed, low and sharp. "Or what? You'll call someone? You'll tell your little friend here what I did? Who will believe you this time?" I stepped forward slowly, keeping my voice steady even though my heart was slamming against my ribs. "You are trespassing," I said. "Leave, now." Mark's eyes flicked to Emma and something ugly flashed in them. "Look at her," he said, like Emma was an object. "She's watching us. Kids remember things. Kids get nightmares. Kids start crying at school. That kind of thing makes people ask questions." I felt a heat rise in my chest so fast it scared me. "Don't talk about my daughter," I said. Mark took one step closer, and Evelyn lifted her hand like a stop sign. Her voice cracked but did not break. "Daniel, don't," she whispered. "He wants you to lose control." That was when I realized she was not just scared for herself, she was scared for us. She had brought danger to my doorstep, yes, but she was trying to keep it from crossing the line into my child's life. I forced myself to breathe. I kept my eyes on Mark, but I spoke to Emma, keeping my tone calm like this was a normal moment. "Emma," I said gently, "go upstairs to your room. Close the door. Stay there until I come get you." Emma's eyes filled with tears. She looked at Evelyn like she didn't want to leave her. Evelyn turned just enough to give her a small nod, soft and steady. "It's okay, sweetheart," Evelyn said. "Go." Emma ran. Her little feet pounded the stairs. and the sound made something in me ache. I hated that she had to hear any of this. I hated that my home, the one place I tried to keep safe, had been touched by someone like Mark. When Emma's door clicked shut upstairs, Mark shrugged like it amused him. "Nice parenting," he said. "Now we can talk." "You don't get to talk," I said. "You leave." Mark's smile widened. "You think you're tough because you're standing in your own house. You don't know who I am." I took another step forward. "I know enough," I said. "I know you're not welcome here, and if you don't leave right now, I'm calling the police." Mark's eyes narrowed. "Call them," he said. "Tell them your tenant is a liar. Tell them she faked being blind. Tell them she's unstable. I've been telling people that for years. You know what they'll do? They'll ask questions. They'll look at her. They'll look at you. They'll look at your little girl upstairs. You want that?" Evelyn's face went pale, but she lifted her chin. "I'm done being afraid of you," she said. Mark stared at her. Then his voice dropped into something colder. "No, you're not," he said. "You're afraid right now. I can see it. And you're standing behind another man because you still don't know how to survive on your own." That hit her like a slap, and I saw tears gather in her eyes. But she did not step back. She stayed where she was, a trembling wall. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. My hands shook, but I kept my face calm. "I'm calling," I said. Mark moved fast, like a switch flipped. He lunged toward me, grabbing my wrist. His grip was hard, practiced. It took everything in me not to swing at him. I remembered what Evelyn said. He wanted me to lose control. "Let go," I said through my teeth. Evelyn stepped in and grabbed his arm. "Stop," she said, voice sharp. "Get your hands off him." Mark turned on her like a storm. "You touch me," he hissed, "and I swear you'll regret it." Evelyn's breath hitched, but she did not let go. "I already regret years of my life," she said. "I'm not giving you another second." In that moment, something inside me shifted. I saw her not as a tenant, not as a secret, not as a woman hiding behind glasses. I saw her as someone who had survived things I could barely imagine and still found the strength to protect my child. I twisted my wrist, breaking his grip, and backed up just enough to hit the call button. My voice stayed clear as I spoke. "There's a man in my house," I said into the phone. "He forced his way in. My daughter is upstairs. We need help now." Mark froze. His face changed, the confidence cracking for the first time. He did not expect me to actually do it. He expected fear to keep me quiet. He backed toward the door, eyes locked on Evelyn like a promise. "This isn't over," he said. "You can hide behind this guy for a while, but you always come back to me." Evelyn's voice was steady, even with tears on her cheeks. "No," she said. "I don't." Mark spat on the floor near the doorway, then stormed out into the wet daylight. I watched him go, my whole body shaking with the need to chase him, to make sure he never returned. But I stayed. Because Emma was upstairs. Because my job was to keep my home standing. The police arrived within minutes. They took my statement. They looked at the broken lock on the back door where he had come in through the private entrance. They asked Evelyn questions too. She told the truth. She told it all. About the accident. About the clinic. About the fear. About pretending so she could stay hidden. I expected the officers to look at her with doubt. Instead, one of them softened and said, "We can help you file for a protection order today." When they finally left, the house fell quiet again, but it felt different now. Not hollow, not dead, more like the quiet after a storm when the air clears and you can breathe. Emma came downstairs slowly, eyes red from crying. She ran into my arms and I held her tight, pressing my cheek to her hair. "Is he gone?" she whispered. "He's gone," I said. "You're safe." Emma looked past me at Evelyn. Her lip trembled. "Miss Evelyn, you can see," she said, not as an accusation, but as a small hurt. Evelyn crouched down to Emma's level, her face gentle and honest. "Yes," she said, "I can see. I'm sorry I didn't tell you. I was scared." Quote. Emma stared at her, then asked the question that broke my heart. "Were you scared of me too?" Quote. Evelyn's eyes filled again. "No, sweetheart," she said. "Never. You were the part that made me feel brave." Emma hesitated, then stepped forward and hugged her. Evelyn closed her eyes and hugged her back like she had been waiting for permission to belong. That night, after Emma was asleep, I found Evelyn on the porch. The air smelled like wet grass and fresh earth. Fireflies blinked in the yard like small lanterns. Evelyn had her sunglasses in her lap, not on her face. Her eyes looked tired but clear. "I should leave," she said quietly. "I brought him here." I sat beside her. "You didn't bring him," I said. "He chose to come. He chose to threaten a child. That's on him." Evelyn's shoulders shook. "I hate that you saw this," she whispered. "I hate that Emma saw it." "I hate it too," I said. "But I'm not letting you run again if you want to fight for your life." She turned to me, surprise and fear mixing in her face. "Why?" she asked. "Why would you help me after what I did?" Quote. I looked out at the garden, at the dark soil waiting for spring. "Because you didn't just take a room," I said. "You brought something back into this house. Not trouble. Not drama. Life." Emma laughs more. "I sleep better. The air feels lighter. I didn't realize how empty we were until you filled some of it." Evelyn's breath caught, and her eyes searched my face like she was trying to decide if hope was safe. "I'm not asking you for promises," I added, voice low. "I'm not ready for that. But I'm not sending you away like you're a mistake." Tears slipped down her cheeks and she didn't wipe them. "I've never had anyone say that to me," she whispered. I reached for her hand. My fingers touched hers, and the contact was simple but heavy with meaning. Her hand was warm, trembling less now. It felt like holding someone's fear and telling it to rest. Evelyn looked at our hands, then back at me. "I used to think love was control," she said softly. "Like if someone held you tight enough, you belong to them. But you don't hold like that. You protect. You make space." Quote. I swallowed, my throat tight. "I thought love ended when my wife died," I said. "I thought that was it for me. I didn't want to open the door to anything else." Evelyn's voice was barely above the wind. "Maybe love doesn't end," she said. "Maybe it just waits until it feels safe again." The words sat between us like a candle in the dark. I turned toward her and she didn't look away. Her eyes were the kind that had seen pain up close and still wanted beauty. I lifted my hand and brushed a tear from her cheek. She leaned into the touch, slow and careful, like she was learning what gentleness felt like. I could feel my heart beating hard, not with fear now, but with something new that scared me in a different way. I did not kiss her. Not yet. I wanted to. But I knew we were still healing. We were still standing in the aftermath of storms, figuring out what kind of calm we were allowed to have. Instead, I squeezed her hand and said, "You're safe here, Evelyn." She closed her eyes, and when she opened them again, they were brighter. "Then I'll stop pretending," she said. "No more hiding, no more lies. I want to live." I nodded. "Good," I said, "because Emma and I could use someone who chooses life." In the weeks that followed, the fear didn't vanish overnight, but it loosened its grip. Evelyn filed paperwork. The police followed up. We changed locks. We put cameras on the porch. I started walking Emma to the bus stop again, not because I thought danger was around every corner, but because I wanted her to feel protected. And something else happened too, something quiet and steady. Evelyn started planting flowers in the garden with Emma, hands in the soil, sunlight on her face. She took off her sunglasses more often, not in defiance, but in relief. She laughed, real laughter, the kind that fills a room without trying. Emma started humming Evelyn's melodies while she colored at the table, and I found myself watching them like my chest had room for more than grief. One evening, months later, we went to a small local fair in town. Emma tugged Evelyn toward the carousel, and Evelyn took off her sunglasses in public for the first time. She looked around like she was meeting the world again, like she was letting it see her too. I stood beside her and she slipped her hand into mine without asking. It felt natural, like the next step in a path we didn't know we were walking. When the carousel music started, Emma waved at us from her horse, laughing so hard her cheeks turned pink. Evelyn leaned close to me and whispered, "Thank you for seeing me." I looked at her, at the woman who once pretended she lived in darkness, and I realized the truth was the opposite. She was the one who had taught me to see again. And in that moment, With lights spinning and my daughter's laughter filling the air, I understood something I never expected. Home was not just a house I was trying to keep. Home was the people who made the broken parts of you feel safe to heal. Because sometimes love doesn't begin with fireworks or big promises. Sometimes it begins with a knock on the door and a woman everyone thinks is blind, but who sees your loneliness before you even admit it yourself.